Good to have your company. You're watching Roundtable. The overturning of Roe v Wade in America drew international attention to just how severely the issue of abortion can divide society. And that isn't true only in the United States. The debate in Poland is just as intense. In 2020, a Polish constitutional tribunal introduced a near-total ban on abortion, unlike in almost all other EU states. So what sets Poland apart from the rest of liberal Europe? Very good to have your company. I'm David Foster. Poland has long had some of Europe's toughest abortion laws, and when the right-wing Law and Justice Party won power in 2015, they were made even tougher. Within 5 years of that election win, the country's highest court was persuaded to outlaw abortion even in cases of severe disability, which had made up the vast majority of abortions before the ruling. That caused outrage, sparking a pro-choice protest movement across Poland. Activists failed to change the law, but many suggest it did mark the end of Polish society's long-standing Catholic conservative census. Joining us to discuss this on Roundtable today, let's go to Poland, to Warsaw here, and Krystyna Kapczura, President of the Federation for Women and Family Planning, Renata Miankowska-Nurkiena, Professor of Political Science at the University of Warsaw, obviously also Poland, and Radom, in the same country, Poland, Karolinna Gesiak, Director of the Centre of Medical Law and Bioethics at the Ordo Iuris Institute. You're going to have to help me, first of all, Krystyna, and help trying to understand how emotional this debate has become in Poland.
January 27, 2021, just before midnight, the abortion banning ruling of Polish Constitutional Tribunal was published in Journal of Laws of the Republic of Poland. As of this day, abortion was illegal in Poland, with the exception of pregnancy being a result of rape or incest, or a threat to a woman's life or health. Poland has already had one of the most restrictive abortion law in Europe and also in the world.
You see, this is what I don't understand. Yes, it was a Catholic conservative country. It already had restrictive laws. How much actually changed?
From 1 year past, since over 1 year, since the most brutal attack on women's rights in modern Polish history, it was a year and still is of pain, terror, and suffering of thousands of women. From the very announcement of the ruling of the Constitutional Tribunal, we just wanted to help women, and still we are provide them with access to information, the information about the death of Izabela from Szczyna, which was announced during past months.
Krystyna, I'm going to bring some of the other panelists in just so that we can all get an idea of where each one of you stand. So let me ask you, Katarzyna, first of all, what was this women's strike and how effective was it in implying or applying any kind of pressure?
I think that this was mostly the political, kind of political protests. They happened during the COVID, all of these, the most strict COVID restrictions. And it was unfortunately, unfortunately to the outcome of to the results in the society of the Constitutional Tribunal judgment. Maybe it was given just in a very hard time because people closed in their homes. They just received from the media, from newspapers, received the information that the abortion in Poland is totally banned now, which is.
See, what I'm wondering is whether the authorities were influenced by this women's strike and actually sort of said, well, hang on, you're becoming very, very militant. We don't want to see that. We want to have control over what you do with your bodies, and therefore their stance in a way, hardened?
Well, yes, it was hardened, the law. It is more strict now. But I would like to emphasize that being pregnant doesn't mean that it is my body anymore. The body of the child is not my body anymore, no longer. So this is obvious, and the majority of the society was just misled by the wrong information. That now in the situation like which happened in Pszczyna, for example, with Mrs. Isabella, are happening because elimination of the eugenic abortion in Poland, which is not that true.
I think at this point I need to stop you and ask you to explain about this person that you've mentioned, it's been mentioned twice on this program, for the betterment of our viewers. Can you just give us the background there?
Yes, of course. Yes, that was the woman that went to the hospital because of problems in pregnancy, and she wasn't diagnosed properly, and doctors didn't notice that her physical condition is getting worse, so they didn't take any medical intervention in case to save her life. In effect of which she died. And what happened after her death was the fact that her baby wasn't ill, was healthy. So the condition of the eugenic abortion had nothing to do with that case, and the doctors were not even allowed. They were obliged to save this woman's life.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Katarzyna, in a little while and ask you why you think there are better laws now, and that if people don't like what they're seeing, they could just vote out the Law and Justice Party. But Renata, we're going to talk to you in just a second. You've waited very patiently, but I want to hear from a member of the lower house of the Polish Parliament first.
Abortion has always been a difficult issue for Parliament. It awakens massive public emotion and public interest. I think we need to find a place where constitutional arguments on the right of life, on human dignity, and the ban on discrimination can be decisive.
This sounds to me, Renata, as if it has incredible resonance in Poland, but it's echoing what we're seeing in the United States, or in fact, the United States appears to be following what's happened in your country.
Well, Poland is, first of all, not a federation. So all those decisions that are made centrally, they have influence on all the Poles. And here the fight is, I would say, much clearer than in the United States. Clear in a sense that in the case of the Polish Constitutional Court, the new government of Law and Justice in 2015 simply immediately after overtaking the power, concurred the Constitutional Tribunal by simply politicizing it enormously in order to be able to order rulings. And this has been recently confirmed, actually.
So what they did was they packed, and I think it was the Minister of Justice in particular, packed the courts with their favourites.
That's true, but it's not only that. It was, I would say, a set of various steps, like the president of Poland hasn't taken the oath from those judges of the Constitutional Tribunal that were supposed to be appointed. So it was breaking the constitution, and of a clear kind. There were no doubts to anyone apart from the governing party. But let's come back to what this Constitutional Tribunal has done, actually, to the abortion right in Poland. Well, first of all, it put almost nearly total ban on abortion, in a sense that before that, legal abortion, it was around 1,000 of cases per year. And now only 2% of those cases actually fall under those two other exceptions that still haven't been done yet.
Let me interrupt you and put something up on the screen, which is this. In Poland, abortion is now only legal if there's been rape, incest, or there is a risk to the mother's health or life. In 2020, abortion in case of fetal disability, they were outlawed. You look as though you might be telling me something that I've got wrong in just a second, but bear with me a minute. Before the ban was implemented, 98% of abortions were due to fetal disability. I'm sorry to throw that in there, but it just lays it out precisely. Have I got that absolutely right?
Yes, you have, but the point about those, deaths, because there were numerous, but the most vivid one was, or the most, let's say, mostly commented one was this of Isabella from Pshtina. It was obviously not because, well, the doctors wrongly recognized the situation for abortion or against. It was because when you put a total ban or nearly total ban on abortion in numerous cases where, let's say, the life of a fetus, because it's not yet a child, let's be honest. I mean, this is the nomenclature that has been actually introduced in Poland by Ordo Iuris and by the Catholic Church and by the politicians, extremely conservative, definitely not by the Polish, and also this eugenic abortion. What is it? I mean, it's not the proper name for that.
Let's bring Christina back in that, because you're waving your arms around. I think you agree with what you're hearing from Renata, but you may have something to add, and let's broaden it out a little bit.
Yes, they use the language which is not appropriate. What does it mean, eugenic abortion? This is the abortion because of fetal abnormalities and lethal illnesses. So it has nothing with eugenic. And what more, our government and our ruling party just took advantage of the pandemic. In other European countries, governments made everything to make the access to reproductive health services easier for women in time of pandemic. In our country,
apart from Hungary.
Yes. So in our country, they took advantage of this time of pandemic and we were closed at homes, and ruling party didn't expect that women would come into streets in such situation, but we came out and we stood for many hours. So apart from the pandemic, and they didn't want to introduce this draconian draft law into the parliamentary discussion because they were not aware if it went through. They were afraid also their own members of parliament. So that's why they decided to introduce and ask this question to the Constitutional Tribunal.
Katarzyna, I'm going to come to you in just a second. Thank you very much, Christina, for the moment. I'm going to play in this from a pro-choice activist. This was a demonstration in 2020, talking about how she feels almost detached from the entire argument.
Honestly, I was pissed off. I couldn't stop my emotions because I felt like an incubator, like a thing. It was so unrealistic. It couldn't be true. I couldn't believe that we will have such law in our country. And I cannot recognize our country anymore.
Katarzyna, do you think Poland has fundamentally changed? Or are we just seeing the same sort of extremes, if you want to call it that we would have been perhaps seeing 70, 80 years ago?
No, we didn't change drastically or diametrally. What the tribunal, Constitutional Tribunal did is just, it was just repeating its argumentation that was given in 1997. When it firstly said that human life deserves protection and needs to have a protection in Poland from the very beginning. And according to before the speaker, my previous speaker, I would like to say that the term child as a human being before the birth is even used in the International Convention on Human Rights. It is not the concept of Ordo Iuris. This is international concept mentioned in international term mentioned in international binding treaties and international.
Has this in any way set back women's rights, do you think, in Poland?
Just the opposite. I think that women's rights didn't been even touched because, as what our Supreme Court has said, that there is nothing like the right to abortion. It is not a right of a person. What a person has, it is the right to life. So we cannot have both of them. they are just the opposite. So the rights of women are respected as they used to be.
Renata, on that point?
Of course, it's not true, first of all, because what kind of statement it is that you cannot have both rights? Exactly, the women's rights should be protected and the children's rights should be protected. Women's reproductive rights are rights to decide about their bodies, about their lives, about their health, and also they should have access to proper protection by the doctors and to being protected also as human lives. In the case of the court ruling of the Constitutional Tribunal in Poland, we had the freezing effect on the doctors, and that's why exactly Izabela from Pszczyna, although she could live now, she is dead. And that's one of the aspects that Ordo Iuris seems to forget. It's absolutely not true that you cannot have both rights. Why not? All mothers probably in the world, or almost all, want their children's all the best for their children. The problem is not what the mothers want, but how legal provisions protect them.
I do understand. I'm going to butt in only because I'm afraid we have heard these arguments both for and against many times, and I totally respect that.
Could I just give you,
but I want to move on.
One statistical data, because quickly. It's meaningful. Yes, 68% of the Polish asked in an opinion poll what they think about abortion stated that they want this so-called, let's say, abortion compromise, which was also allowing for abortion in cases of the really irreversible and heavy disability of the fetus, which basically means that what this court rulings was, court ruling, Constitutional Tribunal ruling, and what the governing party states is absolutely not true, because the Poles don't want it. They don't want what they provide them with. So it means that
so it's a question of the government and the church. Do you think, Katrina? Do you think it's the government, Christina, government and the church ganging up together to impose their will on the people rather than the voters having their say?
Yeah, I'm sure that politicians act together with Polish Catholic Church, because, you know, it happens in 1991 first, and then that the Polish abortion law was made much more restrictive. And it happened because Polish Catholic Church demanded the repay for its influence and its help and assistance into the solidarity movement and into the economic transformation in Poland. So women's rights were sold for the support of church. And still many of Polish politicians are sure that without the support of Polish Catholic Church, they will not win the election.
But Katerzyna has a point, does she not, when she says if you don't like what the government's doing, just vote it out, choose another one.
Yeah, but, you know, our Constitutional Tribunal just forgot totally about women's rights, about rights to health, about rights to private life, about many, many constitutional provisions. So they also forgot about...
But let me go back to my question. I understand you have a list this long of the reasons why you don't like what has happened, but her point, and I'll come to you in just a moment, if I may, Katerzyna, but her point is, if you don't like what the government's doing, put in a new one.
And may I answer this question as a political scientist?
Yeah.
Because, if you want to choose another one, you should have first democracy, because in autocracy, you don't choose the government you wish for, right? So when in Poland you have a democratic backsliding of a really serious kind, one of the largest in the world, when you have the freedom of the media falling down since 2015 from place 18 in the world to place 65, and when you also have all possible books and criteria regarding democracy pointing towards Poland and Hungary in the European Union as those that have made an enormous jump towards autocracy, you really do expect now free elections where people will just replace one government with another. I mean, sorry, but this doesn't work this way.
Well, let's put that to one of the other
right?
panelists, Katashna. I guess you said if you don't like it, change the party. That was in the notes I was given by the producer. It isn't as simple as that, is it? These days, it's not the same democratic country, Poland, that it was 5-6 years ago.
Of course, I think that it is the same democratic country. The Polish Constitutional Tribunal is not the only one that gives the binding rulings according to existing constitution. I think that the pro-abortion activists and environments just simply don't want to accept the shape of Polish constitution. The fact that this is the main legal act, a binding legal act in Poland, and it states that human being's life is protected from the beginning, as it occurs from the constitutional.
And this is something that you have felt for all of your adult life, or adolescent up to adult life, I'm pretty sure. What did you think of the way Poland treated abortion before the changes? Were you appalled?
Before the Constitutional Tribunal,
yes, before the rules were changed.
Well, this was not the first attempt to change the law, to make it more stricter. The first one, I think, was made in 2016. And from that time, all the pro-life organizations and environments wanted to
But did you previously, sorry to interrupt, did you previously think of the way that Poland was running its abortion laws as being barbaric, and that now it is civilized, perhaps?
Well, yes, it was barbaric for all those children who have been killed because of suspicion of their disability. Yes, that was barbaric, and it was connected with discrimination of people with disabilities.
Christina, you believe that women, particularly the rural poor, will suffer under this newly. What's your reasoning?
Yes, the enormous suffering. Just would like to add that this draconian draft law proposed by Ordo Juris to Polish Parliament in 2016, it was, a total ban of abortion, first of all. Investigation also of unintended miscarriages. Not access to emergency contraception.
But why the rural poor? Why are they going to suffer the most? Sorry.
Because not only women have been suffering from this law, but the whole families. Every day, men and women are calling us, asking for help. And they ask why Poland hates them so much, why Poland hates us. We are citizens. And our future baby, they say, these are wanted pregnancies, of course, because nobody waits till 20 weeks of pregnancy to terminate this pregnancy. And they know for sure that this is the lethal state of these fetus, and nobody won't help them. It was in Pszczyna that, in the explanation of gynecologists from Pszczyna, it was stated that they did according to the existing law.
Okay, so Renata, is there a danger, do you think, that what Poland is doing, if you like, in shifting towards the more Catholic, conservative side of the abortion debate, is an argument that may well be taken up by other European countries where at the moment things are quite relaxed? I mean, Hungary's been mentioned, but what about other countries too?
Well, I don't think there will be any domino effect, because Europe is definitely not Poland. And those attempts in Poland to actually decide about women's bodies and to give as much power as still possible to the Catholic Church, it is really short term, because in Poland we have the largest discrepancy between religiousness of the youngsters and the elderly in the world. Nowhere in the world we don't have so few young people really believing in Catholic Church. So I think that we are rather going to walk the path towards Ireland and not let's say, Malta, But the problem is, although now it looks as if we and Malta had the most draconian, let's say, situation. The problem is, or the toughest situation.
Okay,
the problem
so
is,
let me put this, because we're running out of time.
Make political decisions.
I get
indeed.
it.
But
You don't think it will be for the long term. Kateshna, let me put this to you, that if the Law and Justice Party is no longer in government, another government may come in, it may change it, and that will push back what you consider to be the advances.
Yes, of course, it may happen. But please remember that to change the constitution is not only the thing to win the election, parliamentary election. And what did the Constitutional Tribunal? He said that our constitution protects those babies' lives.
That is, however, the way it is at the moment. Whether it remains that way for any length of time, we will, of course, have to wait and see. All the headlines, it appears, have been about Roe v Wade. But we bring you another side of the same story. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. Thank you, wherever you happen to be, for watching this edition of Roundtable. I'm David Foster. We hope you can join us on another occasion. Until then, goodbye.